All right. So, categorical analysis is my term for a method I've developed for understanding and analyzing and annotating chess positions and moves and games. So, all chess players understand that they need to learn from their own mistakes and from their own games, but most players don't have a clear or a consistent definition of what constitutes a mistake or how they should review their own games or review the games of grandmasters. Um, so categorical analysis is like a mental model and like a process that you can use when you're analyzing a game played by yourself or played by someone else, or when you're studying material from a chess book you're reading or a course or a website, something like that. A little disclaimer. Um, I didn't, I wouldn't really say that I invented this method. I would say more like that I just realized that this method was the true and right way. So if that makes me sound like a cult leader, then we are off to a great start. So, all right. So, um, I am going to I'm going to put a link here in the Zoom chat that is going to be a link to a Lichess study that has a bunch of examples and exercises that we're going to work through. So it's a public study, which means that if you click on that link, you should um, you should be able to see the study, um, and you should also be able to like turn on the engine and manipulate the things of the study. And you can all do that simultaneously, and it won't sync up with other people who are messing with the study at the same time. So everybody should be able to use the study simultaneously. And then on my end, I'm going to share my screen, um, and you'll see what I'm doing on the study if I'm going to play through the moves at my own pace and highlight certain things. Um, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to share my screen, and then you should be able to see um, where I am in the study, uh, even if you're like in a different place in the study. And that's what you guys can see, right? You guys can all see my screen share now, right? Okay. Um, all right. So, categorical analysis starts with the fact that all chess positions can be classified into three categories: win, draw, and loss. Um, in an objective sense, win, draw, and loss are the only three true evaluations of a chess position because those are the only three results of a chess game: win, draw, and loss. Um, Now, to be clear, what we're talking about here is the objective, true evaluation of the position, meaning how the position would play out with perfect play. Um, the like practical or subjective nature of the position, that is like how the position might play out in practice between imperfect human players, that is a separate question from what is the objective truth of the position. So let's start off with a very simple example. So here we have a position that is a win for white and therefore a loss for black. Um, that means that with correct play, white can eventually force a checkmate against black, and black cannot change this evaluation. No matter what black does, the position will still be a loss for black. But white does have the power to change the evaluation of the position, because if white makes a mistake, like hanging the queen, for example, that changes the evaluation of the position to a draw. Um, and when black takes the queen, the evaluation remains a draw. But again, black has the power to change that evaluation. If black makes a mistake and doesn't take the queen, then that changes the evaluation back to a loss for black. And notice that both of those mistakes changed the evaluation for the worse. White's mistake changed the evaluation from a win down to a draw, and black's mistake in reply changed the evaluation from a draw down to a loss for black. So neither player has the power to magically make a position better for themselves. they only have the power to make the evaluation worse for themselves, and only the opponent has the power to make the evaluation better for you. Um, Now, let's say that white doesn't make any further mistakes. All right, here is the fastest way that white can force a checkmate from here, right here. How do I know that this is the fastest way to a checkmate? Because I can consult the table base. Okay, I'm going to click this icon down here and open up the table base, which is something that any Lee chess analysis board or study you'll have access to. And so the table base shows every legal move in the position that you're looking at. Okay. So it also shows the categorical evaluation of that move. That is the categorical evaluation of the position once that move is played. So queen e4 is winning, so is queen c6, etc. And then over here it also shows the distance to mate or the distance to 0 in the 50 move count. So it lists every legal move, including the ones that ping the queen and change the categorical evaluation, the obvious mistakes. Lucy, you have a question?
Yeah. What does the DTZ and DTM mean?
Right. So this is distance to mate.
Okay.
That is like the number of
It's like
half
mate and
moves.
8, mate and 10, mate and 12, etc.
Yeah, although this 10 actually means the number of half moves. So like a move for white is
Okay, so
equal
it'd be
to
4.
5, yeah. And then the
Okay.
DTZ means distance to zeroing the 50 move count.
Okay.
So basically, it's ranking the moves by how efficiently they reach the goal. But they're still categorizing them all in the same categorical evaluation, which is winning. And then all these moves down here are also grouped together because they all spoil the win. Um, so uh, Now notice that as white is, shepherding the game to the end, to a checkmate here, white doesn't have to play the fastest way to checkmate. Um, like, for example, here near the end, if instead of playing mate in one, white instead plays this mate in two, that doesn't change the categorical evaluation because the evaluation is still a win for white. Even if you miss a mate in one here, white is still winning. So that's not a mistake. It's just a less efficient way to finish the game than a mate in one. And likewise, if black allows a mate in one early, if black allows a mate in one here when instead black could have held out for two moves instead of just one, that's also not a mistake because it doesn't change the evaluation. Black is losing either way. Um, it just speeds up how quickly white can force checkmate. So it's just gifting efficiency to the opponent, but it doesn't change the categorical evaluation. So it's not actually a mistake. Now, the table base only covers positions with up to 7 total pieces on the board. So we're going to look at a more complicated example from a bullet game that I played last night. So I'm playing black here against like a ridiculously high rated player. Um, and in this position, it's white's turn. White has only one move uh, to preserve the winning evaluation. This position is winning for white, but if white plays the right move, there's only one move that's the right move that preserves the winning evaluation, which is g6. Um, And just by the way, the reason why that is winning is just because it makes it harder for my king to come over. And then he just comes over here and munches all my pawns and wins. Okay, so g6 is the only move after which white remains winning. After the move that he played, king d4, um, that changes the evaluation from a win actually to a loss. White is now losing. I'm now winning. So that's like a double mistake going from a win to a loss. And now in this position, I have only one move that preserves the evaluation of black is winning, which is the move that I played, f takes g5. And then after he takes back, f takes g5, again, there's only one move that I can play that preserves the winning evaluation, which is f4, which is what I played. And then, I remained winning for the rest of the game. I ended up winning. He resigned like one move from checkmate or something. So going back to the initial position, um, this position has more than seven total pieces on the board. And so we can't just ping the table base to see the table base evaluation of this position. So how do we know that white is winning here if we don't have access to the table base? And the answer is that we turn on the engine, and the engine displays a numerical evaluation. In this case, it's displaying the numerical evaluation plus 4.7. And I interpret this number to mean that white is winning. And then after the move my opponent played, king d4, the numerical evaluation changes from plus 4.7 to minus 4.7 or some such. And I interpret that number to mean that black is winning. And we'll discuss more about interpreting numerical evaluations shortly. Um, uh, so let's look at a simple example of a position that is a draw, a categorical draw. Um, some positions are an automatic draw. For example, just king against king. Uh, there's no debate even possible about what the evaluation is. It's an automatic draw because it's literally impossible for either side to ever end up in checkmate if it's just king against king. This position is not an automatic draw, but it still has the evaluation of draw. It's still a categorical draw because even though it is possible for white or for black to win, it's not possible for either side to force a win. That is, no matter what either side does to try to win, the other side will have some way to safely defend. For example, white might try queen d4, which sets a trap, hoping that black will play the losing mistake, king e6, which allows this skewer that wins the queen, and white wins. But of course, black can avoid that mistake and instead play king f5, which is the only move to preserve the pre-existing evaluation of draw. And then again, white could play like queen f4, and that sets the same trap again. Um, it gives black the same chance to like make it a mistake, king e6, after which white is winning. But black can again avoid that mistake by going king g6, which is again the only move that preserves the pre-existing evaluation of draw. And again, the evaluation of draw doesn't mean that the game is automatically over right away. The game might continue. It just means that white doesn't have a way to force a win, and black also doesn't have a way to force a win. And so the only categorical evaluation left is draw. Um, a drawn position is by definition one where neither side can force a win. Now, again, if we go back and we consult the table base in this position, the table base does not differentiate between any of white's moves which preserve a drawn evaluation. So, for example, it doesn't rank queen d4 check higher than, let's say, queen e4 check, even though queen e4 check doesn't set a trap. It doesn't even give black a chance to make a mistake. So we might subjectively consider queen d4 to be like a better practical try in this position. Like if we have this position in the game, we might as well play queen d4 check just because who knows, maybe the guy will play king e6 and we'll win. It's not that we're expecting him to, but I mean, we have to make a move. We might as well just pick one that allows the possibility of him making a mistake. So subjectively, we might consider queen d4 like a better move, but in an objective sense, these two moves are completely equivalent because in both cases, if black has some reply, preserves the pre-existing evaluation of draw, then there's no these two. Neither of these is better or worse than the other. Okay, let's look at a more complicated um, example of a position, which is a categorical draw. You may be familiar with this position. It's the starting position of chess. Um, so the engine's numerical evaluation of the starting position, at least this engine running in my browser at this search depth, it's giving plus 0.2. Now I interpret this number to mean that the position is a draw. And as we see from the computer's top suggestions, white could play d4 or e4 or c4, and in all cases, the evaluation remains a draw. Um, Even if white plays a4, and the engine's numerical evaluation drops to minus zero point 0.2, I still interpret that number to mean that the position is a categorical draw, which means that nothing has changed. And in fact, A4 is equivalent to E4 or to D4. All of those moves are categorically equivalent. They all remain categorically drawn. And one is not better or worse than the other. Now, subjectively, you might prefer E4. I would bet that you do. I would bet that you would prefer E4 rather than A4. But someone
Um,
else might. Go ahead. Yes.
I am just so interested to see what the Magnus Carlsen tournament game is where the first move was A4.
There's
Like the first top game.
You mean Nakamura?
No, it
Is
top
is
game. Magnus Carlsen versus Timur.
Oh, I see. I am going to show you a game with A4, but it's not by Magnus. I was just saying that like
Really? It was
I was
rated
just
correct.
saying that even if you prefer E4, somebody else might prefer A4. Check out this game by Brandon Jacobson from the World Rapid. He played one A4 and beat Nakamura. So um, preference is subjective. You can peruse this game at your leisure later. Let's talk in more detail about how to translate the engine's numerical evaluation into a categorical evaluation. All right. So these are the thresholds that I use to make that translation. So if the engine is giving a number that's plus 1.5 or beyond, that is 1.5 or greater, then that means that white is winning. If it's in this range, 0.7 to 1.5, that means that white might be winning, or it might be a draw. If it's in this range here in the middle, plus minus zero point 0.7, that's definitely a draw. If it's and then the same symmetrical ranges in the negative direction. Okay, there's this range where black might be winning or it might be a draw. And then if it's negative 1.5 or further in the negative direction, that means that black is definitely winning. How did I come up with these thresholds? Just through lots of experience using the engine to analyze games. I analyze thousands of games every year, my own games and games played by grandmasters that I just analyze to learn from them. And I've been doing this for years. So I've built up an enormous amount of experience just using the engine and interpreting what its output means in a human sense, and also in an objective sense. And I even play this form of correspondence chess where players are allowed to use engines while they play. They are allowed to cheat as much as they want by consulting engines while they play. It's a special kind of correspondence chess that only real degenerates like myself play. And so, based on this experience playing engine correspondence and analyzing all these games and using the engine constantly, I have simply found that when the engine says 1.5 or greater, it is virtually always the case that the position is winning. And it is almost never the case that the position, after further analysis, turns out to be a draw, and certainly never a loss. So this is all just based on my experience. It's not some sort of immutable law. It's just my personal rule of thumb based on my experience. And so here's how I use those thresholds to analyze a game. Let's say the game that I'm analyzing is the Scholar's Mate. Okay, this game right here. Very simple game, right? The way that I go through and mark up this game is I mark up all the moments throughout the game where a categorical mistake occurs. So in a simple game like this, there's only one categorical mistake, and it's black's third move, knight f6. It's a mistake, so it gets a question mark, and the categorical evaluation changes to white is winning. It was previously a draw, now white is winning. So I give it a mistake, and I put the white is winning symbol. And anytime there's a mistake, I always put like what an alternative would have been that's not a mistake. So here G6 would remain equal. I sometimes use the infinity symbol instead of the equal symbol. I use them sort of interchangeably, but for simplicity, I'll just use the equal symbol here. So now here, queen takes f7 mate is the only winning move for white. The next best move for white is not winning. In fact, it may even be losing. I mean, but it's certainly not winning. So I give queen takes f7 checkmate an exclam to denote that it is the only move. So I use an exclamation point in like a sort of special rigorous for a special rigorous meaning, just to denote an only move, not to denote like an impressive move or a cool move or a fancy move, but just to denote an only move. So I use question mark to denote a categorical mistake, exclam to denote a unique only move, and then these evaluation symbols to denote what the categorical evaluation changes to after a certain move. Okay, so that's an
Um,
extremely simple game. Yeah, Lucy, what's up?
quick question. Sorry,
No, no
but
problem.
um I noticed that you just used the single question mark and never the double question mark.
I actually do use the double question mark, which will, and there's an example of that in this Blackburn game. So you'll see how I
Okay,
use it there. Um,
sounds good.
okay, so let me just show you one more example, which is a little bit less simple. So this is the famous opera game by Paul Morphy. And when I go through this game, we're going to see an example of the evaluation going into what I call the indeterminate zone, which is this zone between zero point 0.7 and 1.5. So this plus one means that white might be winning, but white might not be winning. So when the computer is giving plus one, that means the computer really does not know whether the position is going to round upward to infinity, that is to a forced mate, or whether it's going to round downward to zero. That is, it's not winning, and there is no forced win. The position remains categorically drawn. Uh, the engine is like truly at a crossroads, and we cannot be sure of which of those is the case. It could be that white is already winning here. That is a very real possibility that white is already winning by force here, and that this plus one means, in a table-based sense, that like white has like mate in 150 moves or something like that. Or it might mean that it's just a mirage and white is not winning and the computer is just on the wrong scent. So, and we don't know which of those is the true case. So what I do to mark that it's indeterminate is I use this symbol, which traditionally means white is better. I don't use it to mean white is better. I use it to mean white might be winning. But I still put an alternative that would definitely not be winning. So if black had played e takes d4, we have not even crossed that first threshold of 0.7. We can be certain that black is fine and that there's no forced win for white. So I put that as an alternative. Now, I don't give a question mark to bishop g4 because it's indeterminate whether it's a mistake. It might be a mistake or it might not be a mistake. So I'm not just going to go ahead and say that it's a mistake if I'm not sure. I have to keep open the possibility that it's not a mistake. So I'm not going to come down hard and say that it is a mistake, but I'm at least marking that it might be, and that if it is, then e takes d4 is a better move than that. But I just don't know. So I'm going to move on. And as the game continues, it remains in the indeterminate zone until the moment that it crosses the next threshold, which is 1.5. Now we haven't exactly crossed 1.5 here, but if I ungate the computer's search depth, it's going to cross 1.5. Um, I'm not going to get too deep into like search depths and other sort of like computery things, um, but suffice to say that I just nudged the computer and it came down on, with a more determinate evaluation, which is that white is already winning. It's kind of remarkable here that in the Opera House game, Morphy is already winning like after four moves. I bet you didn't know that about the Opera House game. Um, Morphy takes so that means that we are now in the white is definitely winning zone. And if the Duke and the Count had played the computer stop move, knight c6, then there would still be some uncertainty about whether or not white is winning. It could be that white is winning anyway, uh, but we're not sure one way or the other. And so that might be an improvement over the move that they actually played, after which white is definitely winning. And then as I go through the rest of the game, I don't care where we are above 1.5 as long as we remain above 1.5. I don't care if Morphy plays the computer stop move. I just care if he spoils the win or not. Because basically, if he missed a mate in one, but he still played a mate in three, he didn't spoil anything at all. Just because he missed a mate in one, that doesn't mean it's a mistake. So if he made a move that goes from plus 2.1 to plus 1.8, in a higher sense, that's no harm done. that means that he didn't spoil anything. So I'm just going to see whether he spoiled anything. And spoiler alert, he didn't spoil anything. He just remained over 1.5 for the rest of the game. And there are a few moments where he played an only move to do so. For example, here, bishop takes b5, check, the move that he played. That's the only move that remains winning. So I'm going to give that an
Shouldn't you
X.
have a question mark on move four?
That's a great question. That's you, Martin, right? Um,
Yes, sir.
that's a great question. Shouldn't I put a question mark on bishop takes f3 because that's the moment where it goes to definitely winning for white? The answer is actually no, because I don't know whether uh, it was bishop takes f3 that made white winning or bishop g4 that makes white winning. Uh, it could be that white is already winning here, in which case bishop g4 is the move that gets the question mark, and bishop takes f3 is not a mistake at all because white was already winning. I don't know whether that's the case. It's as if I arrested two suspects for a crime and I don't know who actually committed the crime. I can't just pick one of them randomly to convict. It doesn't work that way. That's illegal. I mean, I could be convicting an innocent person. It could be the other guy that did it. And so if I'm not sure, I can't convict either of them, even though I know it must have been one of them. An analogy I use a lot is like Murder on the Orient Express, where like through the night, the 12 people come in and stab the guy while he's sleeping. In the morning, he's dead, but they don't know which of them was the one whose stab actually killed the guy. So it's the same thing here. It must be bishop g4 or bishop takes f3 that gets the question mark, but we don't know who. We don't know which. So we have to just keep both options open. That's a good question. Um, so going back to just like finishing out the game here, like I said, I mark up with an exclam any moment where there was an only move played. But other than that, I don't care whether Morphy played a +6 move or a +3 move. Um, one more only move here, made and one. So that's the end of marking up this game with the symbols. Okay, so the um, the symbols I use for these objective categorical analysis claims, and if I want to say something subjective about the game, if I or human practical, like if I want to say, for example, just that this is the Philidor, or if I want to say like if I want to try to backsplain why a move might is a mistake or might be a mistake, I could say like um, I could just give some sort of attempt at explaining, according to my own human understanding, why a certain move is good or why another move might be better or something like that. Okay, I just opened the chat and I saw that there were some questions. Somebody asked whether white has a losing first move. That's a good question. 1g4 might be losing because it's already in the indeterminate zone where black might be winning. There's no first move that we know for sure is losing for white, and it's really a toss-up whether or not g4 is losing. But I think every other first move is fine. Like h4 is definitely fine. A4 definitely fine. Again, I'm not suggesting you play these moves. It's up to you what move you want to play.
I
But
actually,
if someone plays h4 against you, you should not assume that you're winning. In fact, you should know for sure that you are not winning because you're not as black. You're not winning if your opponent plays h4. It's not a mistake. They haven't made a mistake yet. So if you want to win, it remains to be seen whether they actually make a mistake. So anyway, that's a good question. Let's see what
hey, wait,
other
quick thing.
yeah, go
Um,
ahead, Lucy.
in terms of in terms of it with black, I already told you this, but I had this one game and it was against 1700 USCF. I played D4 and he moves to B5 and I was already in the winning
Yeah,
zone.
that might be losing. I mean, I guess when it says yeah, I mean yeah, if it's saying
Yeah,
+1,
yeah,
then it's a
yeah. It
very
was
real possibility that white is winning here. We just don't know. If I were to play an engine correspondence game against someone
yeah,
else who's also using an engine, then I don't know. I mean, I might win. I might
yeah.
like literally win by force even against the engine from this position. Or maybe they'll just barely hold a draw. and I'll torture them for like 300 moves, but it'll end in a draw anyway. I really don't know
He
which
just
of
hung
those.
his queen.
You just, yeah, of course, in a human game, anything can happen. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do is we are going to practice doing this. Okay, so I've got a game in here with no notes that I would like everybody to take a few minutes and try to go through with the engine on your own and mark up in this manner. I'm going to keep my screen shared and I'm going to do it myself. So if you're confused or you just want to cheat and copy what I did, you can just watch me do it. But what I recommend you do is try to go through this game and mark it up in this manner that I just showed you. Put a question mark on the moves that are mistakes, put an exclam on the moves which are the only move, and when you mark a mistake, insert a variation that shows what a better move would have been. And make sure to include the evaluation symbols, the categorical evaluation symbols, when the evaluation changes. If someone makes a mistake and it goes from equal to losing for white, put that symbol again down here. Put that symbol that says black is now winning, and then put an alternative about what white should have done that would remain equal. That is categorically drawn. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask your questions while you're doing it if something comes up. Otherwise, I'm just going to get started analyzing this game, and please do the same. And we'll check back in just a few minutes, and uh, we'll compare our work with each other and see. And
Alex,
yeah, go ahead.
this is Chuck. On my screen, I'm not seeing the symbol where I can insert glyphs.
Do you see down here, Chuck, this thing
No,
here? Oh, really?
no.
I
It's
don't
not
see it
working.
either.
Yeah, I
Huh.
see tags
Me
and
either.
then,
Okay, maybe what you need to do in that case, guys, this is a little bit more complicated. I'm sorry. I'm just beta testing all of this whole workflow with you guys. You would need to clone this study. Go to the share, um,
okay,
go go to the share menu, and then just click clone, and you'll create your own copy of this study that you're the owner of, and then you can do whatever you
okay.
want with it. Yeah.
That did the trick.
Okay, very good. So
Yeah,
yeah,
thank
try
you.
that, and then guys, we'll check back in just in just a few minutes. 3, 4 minutes. Even if you're not finished, we'll compare what we've got so far. Um, okay, so I'm going to get started in case you want to consult what I'm doing.
When I cloned the study, it gave me the glyph symbol, but it doesn't give me the moves that I can advance through.
Um, you're going to need to go to chapter 10, Chuck, once you clone the study.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jonathan. Um, okay, where was I?
So, Alex, one of
Yeah,
the things that I kind of get confused on when trying to do this is like when you're making the like top engine move
right.
and it's like waffling between like two of the boundaries. Like maybe it's go like you make the best move and it goes from like 0 + 0.5 to like +0.7 just because of like, the fact that the Leech's engine is a little bit
Right,
weaker.
right.
Do you err on the side of just like uncertainty in
That's
those
right.
cases?
Exactly. I err on the side of uncertainty. So if I'm not sure whether to classify something as might be winning or definitely not winning, I just go ahead and say it might be winning. I just keep more options open rather than closing more options off. I think that's the conservative way to do it. That's the way to further reduce the number of like false positives, false negatives that you get. So it makes your data more accurate, even if it makes it less determinate. Yeah. let's take one more minute here, guys, and then we'll reconvene. Even if you haven't finished, um, we'll compare what we've got so far in about 1 minute. All right. So, uh, if you're able to see my screen share and your own tab at the same time, you can compare what I've got with what you've done so far. So, uh, as I went through the game, it remains no mistakes up until uh, Blackburn's anonymous opponent mysteriously sacrifices a piece for nothing on move 4, which is a mistake. So now the position is winning for Black. Blackburn played the only move to remain winning, which is to capture the bishop. Interestingly, it's not necessarily the only move for him to capture the second piece that White sacrificed. Black could be winning even after declining the second sacrifice with King F8, or he may not be. We don't really know. So we don't know whether Knight takes E5 is the only move here. So I don't give it an exclam. But a few moves later, Blackburn plays a move which is definitely a double question mark move. Now, Lucy was asking me about this earlier. A move gets a double question mark if it goes from winning to losing. That's the only time that a move gets a double question mark move. So this move, Blackburn could have played a move that's -2. Instead, he played a move that's, over 1.5. So a move that's definitely winning for White. So, and in fact, Queen E7 was the only move that was winning. So he missed an exclam move and instead made a double question mark move. So a very bad
Alex,
move by Blackburn.
are you
Yeah.
sharing?
Am I not still sharing? I think I'm still
Oh,
sharing, Mark. Yeah.
okay, I'm
Um,
not seeing it.
so, Blackburn's opponent took the rook, only good move, Queen H4, and here Blackburn's opponent played a bad, but it's only a single mistake because he could have been winning, but now it's back to equal after the move he played. So he should have played D4, which is the only move, which would be winning. Instead, he played castles, which is a single mistake because it goes to equal. Now it looks like it said 0, now it's saying +1. Again, if I ungate the search depth, that gives the engine a little bit more bandwidth to like make up its mind. So that little blue plus sign allows the engine to like search a little deeper, and then it like makes up its mind one way or the other. And it has made up its mind that it's 0 here. So that makes it clearer that this was definitely a mistake. And so Blackburn played the only move. And here is the final mistake of the game, where Blackburn's opponent should have played Queen D8, only move to remain equal. Instead, they played C3, after which Blackburn is winning, and then there's no more mistakes for the rest of the game. Blackburn just totally seals the deal with some fanciness here. And again, notice I'm not giving this queen sacrifice an exclam. That would be like the traditional chess literature usage of an exclam to denote a cool, fancy, impressive, spectacular move where the spectators will shower the board with gold coins. No, I don't use that in that manner. I use exclam just to denote only move. And queen takes h3, sacrificing the queen is not the only move. There's a bunch of winning moves here. He didn't have to do that. It's the fastest win, but that doesn't mean it's the best move. All these moves are equivalently best. But he played that. But here, this is the only move. Because if you don't go ahead and checkmate him, you're down a queen and you're just losing. So anyway, that's what the final product looks like here in terms of marking up the categorical moments of the game. So I've marked up the game categorically, and now if I really am trying to take this game to heart, whether it's my own game or a grandmaster game, then I would add some text notes as well. Like, uh, you know, uh, I might, for this last mistake that his opponent made, Queen D8, I might say something like, um, pinning the knight f6 so black can't play knight g4, threatening mate as in the game. Again, it's just according to my human understanding of chess, this is what I think is the explanation for why the truth is the truth, for why the right move was right or why the wrong move was wrong. So I can go back and add some text notes there to kind of backsplain the truth, the categorical truth to myself. I don't have to do that. Sometimes when I analyze games, I don't put those text notes in. It takes a little bit of extra time, but it could help you understand the game better on your own human terms. So that's the benefit of doing it.
On
All right.
move 9, d4 keeps the evaluation the same, right? If you
That's right. If White had played d4 on move 9, that would keep the categorical evaluation as it was, which is over plus 1.5.
okay, but it has an exclam because it's the only good move.
It's the only
It's
move
the only
that does
move
that.
that keeps
The next
okay.
best move doesn't do that. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Have
that's
you
why.
mentioned yet when a double exclam is?
Great question, and I never use double exclam for anything.
Okay.
Yeah, so very different from how like chess.com game review, um, showers your game with double exclams according to its own random arbitrary criteria that's designed to keep you using chess.com. No, I just in
Basically,
my
any piece sacrifice.
right, any sort of fancy, impressive move. But I mean, such things are subjective. They're in the eye of the beholder. I might find a subtle move in a rook endgame particularly impressive. I mean, what's impressive is a subjective thing. So I just use my symbols in a purely objective, consistent, rigorous way. Um, Now I've got another more complicated example. Um, that I could show you how I go through and then also that you could practice doing yourself. But let's let me just go ahead and unshare and I want to see if anybody has any questions or any other
So,
pushback maybe on
I have
anything.
I have a question, Alex, which is where you would take this. I think the turning points are really interesting, where the evaluation goes from one of these categories to another. But I'm thinking that I mean, if an example of an only move might be a brilliant defensive stratagem, and that's the only way to avoid mate, and that's normally where humanly you would give an exclam. But equally, it could be that there's an exchange of queens, and the recapture is the only move that preserves equality. And we wouldn't normally give that an exclam because it's obvious and it's not informative to bring it to draw attention to it. So I'm wondering what your philosophy is in treating those as equivalent.
Right, right. So it's a good point that some of the time, if you follow this method rigorously, you will be marking up things that are really trivial, that are not really informative, like Colin is saying, and you'll sort of be presenting them in an equivalent way as some other move that is extremely profound on a human level. My philosophy about this is that if we allow ourselves to be governed by our own subjective criteria, then that is fundamentally self-perpetuating of our existing level. So if we say that I'm going to give an exclam to any move that impresses me, and a move that doesn't impress me, I don't have to give an exclam to that. Well, then you're rewarding a move that you understand and perhaps allowing yourself to sweep under the rug something that you don't understand. You're sort of giving yourself license to just kind of be the arbiter of like what's good, what's bad, what's profound and what's not profound. And I think that actually chess players need protection from from themselves, basically. They often do things that are self-perpetuating and that reinforce their existing level and their existing state of knowledge and sort of barricade themselves against new knowledge that is difficult, for them. And so I personally find solace and refuge in this sort of like fundamentalist, rigorous application of the method. And I think that I've seen some of my students, um, you know, uh, get that benefit from it too, where before they were using my method, they were sort of annotating their games in a self-justifying way,
Mm.
and that was preventing them from learning new things, and they were sort of making excuses for the things that they were doing wrong in the game or whatever. And once they had to start following the strict rules, they sort of couldn't hide from their they couldn't hide anymore in a way. So I see that benefit in it. Although, Colin, I agree that it does feel a little silly to be giving an exclam to a move that just recaptures a queen when that's obviously the only move. But
Mm.
maybe I am just maybe I just like enjoy little menial things like that naturally anyway. So that's why it's not a drag for me. But I have like a bit of robot blood in that sense. So
Well, I mean, I no, I get it. I mean, there's a purity to this, and so I wouldn't question that. But actually, I think that's an example where it could be self-justifying. I mean, if the purpose of, I mean, if the fact that you've got a number of moves that got exclams associated with them, then I suppose that's that there's a sense of like there's a measure of the goodness of your play. You played a number of good moves, and if they're really obvious moves, then why are they deserving of reward? But I mean, I guess this is something that we could, um, uh, we could go on and on about this. But
well,
I
I
really
think that
like the idea of the turning points. That makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah, I think that at least even if following this method still produces data that has certain shortcomings, like what you're pointing out, at least you know what those shortcomings are. Whereas if you mark up a game according to your own black box subjective arbitrary criteria, then you don't even know what you're leaving out or what your biases are. And someone else who's looking at your game doesn't even know what your subjective criteria is for calling a move good or not calling a move good or calling a move bad or not calling a move bad. So I think this sort of consistent universal method, helps the data that you're generating be of uniform quality and uniform character. And I think that's very useful when you
I
aggregate
can
that
see I can
data.
see one area where this would be good, would be really valuable if you can if you and this is more of a kind of an automated analysis idea. If you went through a game and found, you've got two different games. You've got a game by Tal in 1960 and a game by Karpov in 1976 or something. And Tal is on a knife edge, and Karpov is completely in control. What you might see, I would guess, is you'd see a lot of moves that would have exclams because he's getting himself into a situation where maybe he's winning throughout from move 10 onwards, but he's very close to blowing it, right? Whereas Karpov is never in that situation. He's completely in control, and he could always choose two or three moves, and he maybe chooses the best one, but he's not in danger of losing in the same way. And so you could use that as a kind of a measure of, I don't know what you call it, the edginess of are you playing like Fritz or are you playing like Alpha Zero?
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's a good point that a lot of times how many exclams there are in a game is correlated to like how narrow the path is. Yes, exactly. Like in a human sense, like how sharp or whatever, how high stakes it is. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, I again, I think that like subjective things like how difficult the position is, how hard the position is, how profound or impressive the position is, I think those are things that are best left to text notes. I just like keep the subjective characterizations in the text notes and I keep the objective things in the symbols. And then it's just really clear what I'm conveying with each. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Alex, can I
okay.
ask a question that kind of piggybacks off of that a little bit?
Yeah.
So, when we kind of first started doing the analysis, we looked at a game of mine against um, I'm struggling to remember his name. Yeah, another student of yours, like the 1800 super strong player.
Okay.
Um, and Siju. We looked at
Seizure.
the
Okay.
like
Uh-huh.
French game against Siju. And after the game, it had stayed like zeros for a while, but I had like a series of only moves. And like the comment afterwards was like, oh, well, like you had a really hard end game and like was kind of playing on a knife's edge. And I made some comment along the way of like, well, I probably at some point, even though it wasn't like objectively bad, made a series of moves that made the end game significantly harder to play. Um, I had a game recently too where I was like plus like 3.5, like completely winning. And I had an opportunity to play a move that like maintained it. I played a move that kept it at +2, but then basically like forced me to see this like crazy piece sacrifice in order to like go on to win the game. Um, is there, or do you do anything with moments like that? And how do you like figure out like what the best path forward should be to kind of not let the road get that narrow?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. That like you can make a move that's not a mistake categorically, but it could still make your life much harder practically. And how do you account for that and how do you measure that, and how do you mark that up in the game? Great question. The short answer is that I don't have a foolproof way to do that. I think that judging that is a matter of judgment. And if I were to make a comment like that in a game, that like this move doesn't spoil the win, but I really regret it in retrospect because it forced me to see this 8 move combination on the next move that I didn't see, and I could have played this other thing that just trades queens and then I have an easy win, practically speaking. So yeah, I would just make like a text note like that. Like I could insert a variation and just say this isn't actually better than what I played, but to me it feels much easier, and I would definitely do it this way if I could do it again. So something like that. But yeah, in terms of how to like measure that, I don't think you can necessarily like know for sure like what's the most practical move in a position. Like you may have a situation where like you can trade down to like bishop and knight against king, or another option you trade down to like a position where like you're a pawn up in a pawn end game. Like, which is the more practical choice? I mean, to some players who have no idea how to checkmate with bishop and knight against king, I mean, they would just go for the pawn up, pawn ending for sure. For me, I can win bishop and knight against king 100 out of 100 times. I might not win the pawn up, pawn ending 100 out of 100 times. What's most practical for me might not even be the same as what's most practical for you. So I don't think there's like a consistent, rigorous way of accounting for that. I think it's fundamentally subjective what is most practical, and that's why I think it should be reserved for like text comments. Yeah, that's a great question though. Yeah. Um, any other questions? There's a lot of great questions that I'm
Um,
enjoying.
More of
Yeah.
a statement. You brought up the really good point that chess.com gives a lot of exclam moves because I have some friends who keep telling me, "Oh, I did this game on chess.com and I got 3 exclams in my game." And I have never gotten any, I think, and I've just thought I'm bad at chess.
Right, exactly. And now you're liberated from that
I am
whole
very much
like
liberated after hearing that
that
it's
whole
it
arbitrary
objectively gives
meaningless
more
thing.
of those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, chess.com's priority is not the truth. It's like keeping its users stimulated and having fun.
Hate to
And
say it.
so you really like I don't pay any attention to that stuff. I don't pay any attention to automated analysis in the first place. Even Lichess automated analysis, which does not, dole out exclams for fun like that. I still don't like the automated analysis because it still doesn't use the same criteria as my categorical criteria. It uses a different criteria, which I think is flawed and worse. And
Such as?
well, lead chess will give a move a question mark if it changes the numerical evaluation by a certain amount, even within the same category. Like if you're plus
Okay.
5 and you make a move that goes to +2, it'll call that a question mark. Whereas
Oh yeah, I've seen that a couple times.
in a higher sense, it's not a mistake. You didn't spoil the win. Again,
Yeah.
it might say that my example of like going to a pawn ending, a pawn up, instead of simplifying to bishop and knight against king, it might call that a question mark because it considers the bishop and knight against king +6 and it considers the pawn ending +3 or whatever. But
Yeah.
but for me, if I can win bishop and knight against king every time, then no harm done.
Yeah.
Certainly no harm done in an objective sense, and maybe not even any harm done in a practical sense. So I don't trust its criteria. I don't think its criteria is consistent or like true in a higher sense. So that's why I don't like that automated analysis.
Yeah,
If
because
someone
that was
if so, if
something I
someone wants to
saw.
automate my criteria and make a automated analysis protocol that agrees with me completely, then of course I would support that.
Of
Um,
course.
so
But yeah, that I always found that interesting because before when I analyzed games, I always used the automated analysis, and I'm just thinking I went from minus 0.4 to minus 0.2, and that's a mistake.
right, or an inaccuracy, which like that has no objective meaning. That's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
fundamentally
That
not something that
that that
exists.
always just seemed kind of meaningless, the inaccuracy.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
I
I think
definitely feel liberated.
yeah, guys, I think we can probably skip the second example and the second exercise that I've got in there because we're already here coming up on an hour, and you guys all have access to the study, and you're welcome to peruse it at your leisure and follow up with me with any questions that you have about it via email or leech us message or any, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think this has been good. I think this like 1 hour video that I'm going to post will, spread the good news to the people about all of this. So thanks to all of you for joining me for this class. And I mean, we had a pretty good turnout. So I'm thinking that I may do this type of open group class with on some sort of regular schedule, once or maybe twice a month, something like that. So yeah, hope to see you guys again for the next one. But thanks so much to all of you, and great to see those of you whose face I haven't seen in a while. So
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alex.
yeah, thanks guys. Okay, well have a good night, everybody,
Good night.
and we'll see
Happy
you soon.
chessing. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care, guys.